Good day, folks. In this lesson, we're going to go over how to create prefabs, like for some of the decorations in the scene, as well as working with the way in which they're rendered. So if like your character is going to be in front or behind an object. So let's get started. We're going to be working, like the first object we're going to be working with, a good place to start is going to be just this like metal box here. So in your assets folder, navigate to sprites and then environment. And then we're going to be starting off here with metal cube. Now, one thing to remember, or sort of one thing I found out like while I was doing this lesson, don't drag metal cube to the scene. We want to drag it directly to the hierarchy. If you drag it to the scene, that's going to try to apply a material to some of your tiles, and we don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and just drag this to our hierarchy here. Let's do 2 of them, okay? And then what we can do is we can use our different tools here. I'm going to select my move tool and then just move one of them over here. So now if we start sort of see what's going on with this, we'll see that Ruby, how she interacts with them. So we see here, we got Ruby. Kind of like the behavior of this is not what we want it to be. She's sort of like directly in front of them. So we're going to be doing some things to sort of change how the Ruby sprite interacts with the like our other sort of our metal cube sprite. So let's go ahead and see how we can fix that. We're going to go ahead to the project settings to sort of adjust some of these things related to transparency and like when we have one sprite go in front of something or not go in front of something. So let's go ahead to edit and then project settings. And then we're going to be presented with this screen here. We're going to go ahead, a few lessons ago we were in input manager. This time we're going to go to graphics. For our transparency sort mode, we're going to set it to custom axis. And then we'll keep the 0 for X, a 0 for Y, a 0 for X, a 1 for Y, and then a 0 for Z. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this out. And now let's see what that looks like. And we can see that we're getting some degree of okay, Ruby's now passing behind something. So that's good. But we want to sort of refine this a bit more. We're going to do this by adjusting what's called the pivot point for these different sprites. It's going to sort of change how they're drawn and like where Unity sort of considers the beginning of a sprite to be, and therefore sort of like a game object. When it comes to like rendering these different things. Okay, so we're going to go ahead to Ruby. Okay, let's go ahead here, and let's go to our sprite sort point. We're going to set this instead of center. We're set it to pivot. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and adjust the pivot point for Ruby as well as for the objects that we created. So let's go ahead back to our metal cube. And we're going to go ahead and set a few things up. So let's go to our sprite editor. No, we want to go to our pivot point first. Pivot point we want to adjust to bottom. And we can sort of see that in the sprite editor. If we go to apply, that'll sort of change some things here. But you see, this is right here. This is going to be what's considered the pivot point. So we can see initially it was set to center. So that's sort of like where it starts to draw our box object. We're going to set that just to bottom center. Okay, we can just click on apply. Okay, let's see, do we have anything else here? Bottom, hash type, that's good, that's good. Let's also now go to our hierarchy up here. And let's set the sprite sort point to pivot for both of these objects. Okay, sprite sort point to pivot. Good. All right, so now let's see what we got here. And there we go. We have a bit more nuance, like as to when, like how Ruby appears behind something. So that's pretty good. Let's also check her object as far as checking out how it's drawn. So let's go to characters, let's go to Ruby, and then make sure that pivot point, let's set that pivot point to just bottom. Let's click on apply. Good. And let's do one last check. Good. So we see here, like as Ruby moves behind, like we're getting a good ordering of our sprites. That's what we want. So when we are in front of it, we're seeing that it's Ruby's coming out unimpeded. And then when we are behind the object, you see how it's being drawn like that. So that's good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take one of these objects here and create what's called a prefab. We want this setting to basically, we want this object that we created to sort of be something that we can replicate many times, as well as if we need it to make any changes, we only have to make it in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and actually delete the second box I'd made. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. All right. And now let's go ahead and in their assets folder, let's do a right click and say create and then folder. Let's do here prefabs. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this metal cube and we're going to drag it to our prefabs folder. Okay, and what's cool is that like here is our metal cube. It's a prefabricated thing, and let's just add like another one. You see here that it's blue. That means that if I would change my prefab, everything that is associated with that prefab will be adjusted. So let's go to prefabs, select that metal cube. Let's open the prefab, and we can do something simple like change the color. Set it to let's do a nice green, okay? Go ahead and, for me, autosave is applied. If it's not for you, you just click on the save button. I'm just gonna keep autosave set though. Go back out of our hierarchy, and now we see that both of those boxes turn green. So not too bad. Okay, so what are we gonna do for the rest of this lesson? We wanna go ahead and add a bunch of these prefabs to our prefab folder. So what should we be doing by the end of this lesson? So we go to our environment folder. I want prefabs for drain cover, grass small, house, lotus. We already did metal cube, mushrooms, telegraph, tree big, tree big, tree big, and tree little. Okay. And what you're going to be doing is that following the same process we did with the metal box. So for example, let's go to our house. I'm just going to add this. Oh, it's really big. So let's do this grass small instead. Let's add grass small. I'm just going to move it a second here so we can see it. And so what are the things that we did with grass small? Okay, we did some things here as far as our pivot point. In this case of this grass, we're going to set that to bottom. Okay, and then let's go ahead to grass small. Of course, apply. And then for our sprite sort point, we set it to pivot. And let's make sure that it behaves. There we go. That is behaving as it should be. So that looks good. Grass small is now ready to be placed in our prefab folder. So let's go ahead. We just drag and drop that into prefabs. Okay. And I'd like you to repeat that process for drain cover, house, lotus flower, mushrooms, telegraph, tree big, 1, 2, 3, and then tree little. Okay? So you should have those prefabs in your folder by the end of this lesson. All right, folks, I wish you the best of luck. Good stuff.